The manila folder hit the conference table with a sharp slap, and Tessa Vaughn was halfway out of her chair before she even registered what had happened. "I'm done," she said, her voice steady despite the rage building in her chest. 3 hours of listening to their lowball offers, their dismissive tones, their constant reminders that her father's textile company was struggling, and behind the times had pushed her past her limit. She had flown from North Carolina to Manhattan to negotiate the sale of Vaughn Textiles, the company her father had built over 30 years, and these vultures wanted to pick it apart for pennies on the dollar. "Miss Vaughn, please sit down." The voice came from the head of the table, deep and commanding in a way that made her pause despite herself. She had barely noticed the man sitting there throughout the negotiation. He had not spoken once during the 3-hour circus, just observed with dark eyes that seemed to catalog everything. "I have nothing left to discuss with your associates, Mr. Richardson," Tessa said, gathering her papers with sharp, angry movements. "Tell them to send their final offer in writing. I will consider it alongside the other bids." "There are no other bids." The words stopped her cold. She looked up, meeting the intense gaze of Isaac Richardson, CEO of Richardson Industries. He was younger than she had expected, maybe 35 at most, with dark hair and a jaw that looked like it had been cut from granite. His suit probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Excuse me." "Sit down, Miss Vaughn, please." It was not quite a request, not quite a command, something in between that made her hesitate. "Give me 10 more minutes of your time. If you still want to walk out after that, nobody will stop you." Tessa glanced at the 3 other men around the table, the ones who had been insulting her family's legacy for the past 3 hours. They looked as surprised as she felt. Isaac Richardson had not said a single word until now. "Why should I?" "Because you came here to get what your father's company deserves, and you have not gotten it yet." He stood, and she realized he was tall, easily over 6 feet. "And because I am the only person in this room who actually read the full financial report and production history you sent over." Something in his tone made her slowly lower herself back into the chair. Isaac gestured to the other men. "Gentlemen, take a break. Get some coffee. Be back in 30 minutes. "Mr. Richardson, we really should—" "30 minutes, David." The steel in Isaac's voice left no room for argument. The 3 men filed out, one of them shooting Tessa a look that clearly said she was wasting everyone's time. The door clicked shut, and suddenly, the massive conference room felt much smaller. Isaac walked to the windows overlooking the Manhattan skyline, his hands in his pockets. For a long moment, he just stood there, and Tessa found herself studying his profile, the strong line of his jaw, the way his shoulders filled out that expensive suit. "Your father started Vaughn Textiles in 1994, Isaac said without turning around. "Specialized in high-quality cotton blends for premium clothing manufacturers. By 2010, you were the 3rd largest supplier on the East Coast. Then fast fashion hit. Demand for quality declined, and the big orders dried up. Your father refused to compromise on quality or worker treatment, which I respect, but it meant profit margins got tighter. He took out loans to modernize the equipment in 2018. Then the pandemic hit. Contracts canceled, bills still due." Tessa's throat tightened. He had done his homework. "If you know all that, then you know we are not some failing company waiting to be picked apart. We have loyal clients, we have proprietary blends, you have everything except cash flow and market positioning," Isaac interrupted, finally turning to face her. "Which is exactly why my associates think they can lowball you. They see desperation. I am not desperate. Your father has 6 months before the bank forecloses. You have been running operations since he had his stroke last year. You have turned down 3 jobs in New York to stay in Greensboro and keep that factory running. You are paying workers out of your own savings." His eyes held hers. "You are not desperate. You are loyal and stubborn and probably drowning." The accuracy of his assessment stole her breath. "If you are trying to make me feel worse, I am trying to make you understand that I actually see what you are protecting." Isaac moved back to the table, but instead of sitting, he leaned against it, closer to her now. "Those men out there see numbers on a spreadsheet. I see a company that still has its original workforce, that produces fabric that lasts, that treats people like people instead of production units. I see value they are too short-sighted to recognize. Then, why did you let them insult my family's work for 3 hours?" "Because I needed to see what you would do." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "You stayed calm, professional, presented your case with facts and logic, right up until David suggested your father had mismanaged things. That was when you started packing up." Tessa's cheeks flushed. She had almost lost her composure when that particular snake had implied her father's integrity was questionable. So this was some kind of test, call it due diligence. Isaac pulled out the chair next to hers and sat down, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something crisp and expensive. "I invest in companies, Miss Vaughn, not just their assets or their profit potential. I invest in their people, their values, their long-term vision. I needed to know if you would cave under pressure or if you would fight for what you believe in. And you were walking out the door, which is exactly what you should have done. That offer was insulting." He pulled a different folder from his briefcase. "This is my offer, not theirs. Mine." Tessa opened the folder with shaking hands. The number at the top made her vision blur. It was triple what the associates had been offering. More than that, as she scanned the terms, she realized it was not a buyout at all. This is a partnership agreement. Richardson Industries acquires 49% of Vaughn Textiles. You retain controlling interest. We pay off your existing debt, finance the marketing push you need to reach new clients, and provide distribution connections through our retail networks. Profits are split proportional to ownership. You continue to run operations as CEO. I sit on the board and provide strategic guidance. It was too good to be true. Tessa looked up from the papers, searching his face for the catch. "Why would you do this?" "Because fast fashion is dying, Miss Vaughn. Consumers are waking up to the environmental and human cost of cheap clothing. There is a growing market for sustainable, quality textiles, and your company is positioned perfectly to meet that demand. You just need capital and connections." He paused. "And because I have been looking for a textile supplier for a new venture, and everything I have seen suggests Vaughn Textiles is exactly what I need." "What venture?" "I am launching a clothing line. Premium basics, sustainably sourced, ethically made, built to last. The antithesis of everything currently flooding the market. I need a textile partner who shares those values and can deliver the quality required." His eyes held hers. "I need someone who would walk out of a negotiation rather than compromise on what they believe in." Tessa's mind was racing. This could save everything. The factory, the jobs, her father's legacy. But she had learned the hard way that deals that seemed too good usually were. "I need time to review this with a lawyer. Of course. Take a week. 2 if you need it." Isaac stood, extending his hand. "But I want you to know, Miss Vaughn, this is not charity. This is a smart business decision. Your company is worth investing in. Your father built something valuable and you have been protecting it. I respect that." She took his hand, surprised by the warmth of his grip, the way his large hand engulfed hers. "Thank you for actually seeing that. I see more than you think." There was something in his expression, a flicker of something she could not quite identify. Then he released her hand and stepped back. My direct number is on the folder. Call me when you are ready to talk, or if you have questions before then." The door opened and the three associates filed back in, looking confused when they saw the folder in front of Tessa. "We are done here, gentlemen," Isaac said. "Miss Vaughn has my offer. We will reconvene when she is ready." Tessa gathered her things, hyper-aware of Isaac's presence as she made her way to the door. Just before she left, she glanced back. He was watching her, and when their eyes met, he gave her a slight nod, a gesture of respect, or maybe something more. The elevator ride down to street level felt surreal. Tessa clutched the folder to her chest, afraid to believe this might actually work. She had come to New York expecting a fight, expecting to have to defend every aspect of her father's company, expecting to leave with nothing but anger and disappointment. Instead, she had an offer that could change everything. She found a coffee shop 2 blocks from Richardson Industries headquarters and ordered the largest latte they had. Settling into a corner booth, she spread out the contract and started reading. Really reading this time, looking for the traps and loopholes she knew had to be there. But the more she read, the more legitimate it seemed. The terms were not just fair, they were generous. Isaac was offering her father's company a lifeline while still treating it as an equal partner, not a charity case. There were protections built in for worker rights, for environmental standards, for maintaining the quality Vaughn Textiles was known for. It read like someone who actually understood what mattered had written it. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "How did it go, honey?" Tessa stared at the message, not sure how to respond. "It went nothing like I expected. Call you from the hotel." She spent the rest of the afternoon in that coffee shop, going through every line of the contract, making notes, highlighting sections to ask her lawyer about. By the time she finally packed up, the sun was setting and her coffee had long since gone cold. Back at her modest hotel room in Queens, far from the expensive Manhattan properties, she kicked off her heels and collapsed on the bed. Her phone rang almost immediately. Her mother. "Tell me everything," Sharon Vaughn demanded before Tessa could even say hello. So she did. She explained the horrible first 3 hours, the insulting offers, her decision to walk out. And then she told her mother about Isaac Richardson and his offer. There was a long silence on the other end. "Tessa, sweetie, that sounds too good to be true." "I know, but I have been reading the contract all afternoon. It seems legitimate. But why would this CEO suddenly show up and offer you exactly what you need?" It was the question Tessa had been asking herself for hours. "He says it is a smart business investment. That sustainable fashion is the future, and we are positioned to capitalize on it." "And you believe him, did she?" Tessa thought about Isaac's intense gaze, the way he had recited her company's history like he had memorized it, the respect in his voice when he talked about her father. "I think I do, but I am going to have a lawyer review everything before I sign anything." "Good girl. Your father would be proud of how you handled this." Tessa's eyes burned. Her father was in a rehabilitation center in Greensboro, slowly recovering from his stroke but unable to speak clearly yet. She had promised him she would protect his legacy, protect his workers. This deal could let her keep that promise. "How is Dad doing?" "Better. He is getting stronger every day. The therapist says his speech is improving." Her mother's voice softened. "He asks about you constantly, about the company. Tell him I am handling it. Tell him everything is going to be okay." After they hung up, Tessa ordered room service and tried to focus on mindless television, but her thoughts kept drifting back to Isaac Richardson. There was something about him that unsettled her in a way she could not quite name. The way he had looked at her, like he was seeing past all her defenses. The way he had waited 3 hours just to see how she would react under pressure. the warmth of his hand in hers. She shook her head. He was a CEO, probably worth hundreds of millions. She was a textile manufacturer's daughter trying to save her family business. This was business, nothing more. But that night, she dreamed about dark eyes and a voice that commanded her to stay. The next morning, Tessa met with a corporate lawyer her friend had recommended, a sharp woman named Alicia who specialized in partnership agreements. They spent 4 hours going through the contract line by line. "Okay, I have to admit, this is the cleanest partnership agreement I have ever reviewed," Alicia finally said, sitting back in her chair. "There are no hidden clauses, no gotchas, no poison pills. Everything is straightforward and heavily weighted in your favor. That is what worries me." Alicia laughed. "Tessa, sometimes good things happen. This Isaac Richardson clearly sees value in your company and wants to invest in it. The terms protect both parties fairly. If I were you, I would sign this before he changes his mind." "You really think it is legitimate?" "I think it is the best deal you are going to get, and probably better than you deserve given your current financial situation." Alicia softened the words with a smile. "This could save Vaughn Textiles. Is not that what you came to New York for?" "It was." Tessa paid Alicia's fee and walked out into the bright September morning, the contract burning a hole in her bag. She should be ecstatic. This was everything she had hoped for and more. So why did she feel so uncertain? Before she could talk herself out of it, she pulled out her phone and dialed the number on the folder. Isaac answered on the second ring. "Miss Vaughn, I was hoping to hear from you." Just the sound of his voice sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. "I had my lawyer review the contract. And she says it is legitimate. Actually, she says it is the best partnership agreement she has ever seen." "Your lawyer sounds very intelligent." There was warmth in his voice, maybe even amusement. "Does this mean you are considering my offer? I have some questions." "I would be disappointed if you didn't. Are you free for dinner tonight?" The question caught her off guard. "Dinner? I find business discussions are more productive over good food. There is an Italian place in the West Village I think you would like. 7 o'clock. This felt like it was crossing some invisible line from business into something else. But Tessa needed answers, needed to understand why Isaac was really doing this. "Okay, 7 o'clock. I will have my driver pick you up. What hotel are you staying at?" She almost lied, almost gave him the name of some upscale Manhattan hotel instead of her budget place in Queens. But something about Isaac made her want to be honest. "The Comfort Inn on Queens Boulevard." There was a brief pause. "You are staying in Queens." "Some of us have to watch our budget, Mr. Richardson." "Isaac, please." His voice softened. "And there is nothing wrong with being practical. I will see you at 7, Tessa." The way he said her name, like he was tasting it, made her stomach flip. She hung up and immediately called her mother. "He invited me to dinner." "The CEO?" "Yes, to discuss the contract at some Italian restaurant." Her mother was quiet for a moment. "Honey, is this man married?" "What? I don't know. Why does that matter?" "Because I heard something in your voice just now that sounded like more than business interest." "Mom, that is ridiculous. I just met him yesterday." "Hum. Well, wear that blue dress you brought. It looks lovely on you." Tessa spent the rest of the day trying not to obsess over what to wear and failing miserably. She eventually settled on the blue dress her mother had mentioned, a simple sheath that somehow made her look professional and feminine at the same time. She left her blonde hair down and kept her makeup natural. At exactly 7 o'clock, a sleek black car pulled up to her hotel. The driver, an older gentleman who introduced himself as Robert, held the door open for her with a smile that suggested he had done this many times before. The restaurant was tucked away on a quiet street in the West Village, the kind of place that didn't need a sign, because everyone who mattered already knew about it. Isaac was waiting at a corner table, and he stood when he saw her, his eyes moving over her in a way that made her very aware of her body. "You look beautiful," he said simply, pulling out her chair. "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." It was true. He wore dark slacks and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. Somehow he looked even better without the suit jacket. They ordered wine and food, and for the first few minutes, they kept the conversation light. Isaac asked about her flight, her hotel, her impressions of New York. She asked him about the city, about how long he had lived here. It felt like a dance, both of them circling around what they really wanted to talk about. Finally, over plates of handmade pasta, Tessa set down her fork. "Why are you really doing this, Isaac?" He took a sip of his wine, considering his answer. "I told you, it is a smart investment. But there are hundreds of textile companies. Why mine? Because I did my research. I looked at 23 different textile manufacturers on the East Coast. I visited 12 of them personally. Yours was the only one where the CEO knew every single worker by name. The only one where people had been employed for decades because they wanted to be there, not because they couldn't find anything else. The only one where quality mattered more than quarterly profits." He leaned forward. "Your father built something rare, Tessa, a company with a soul. Those are worth saving. You visited. When? 3 months ago. I told your operations manager I was a potential client interested in touring the facility." A slight smile played at his lips. "You were in the design room, working with your lead fabric developer on a new cotton-linen blend. You had pencils in your hair and ink on your fingers, and you were so focused you didn't even notice me watching from the doorway." Tessa's heart was pounding. "You were there. I was. And I watched you spend 20 minutes adjusting the weave pattern until it was exactly right, even though it was already good enough. That was when I knew." His eyes held hers across the table. "You have your father's standards, his integrity. That is what I want to invest in." She didn't know what to say. All this time, she had thought Isaac was some distant CEO making decisions from a Manhattan high-rise. But he had been there, had seen her company, had understood what made it special. "Why didn't you introduce yourself?" "Because I needed to see you in your element, not performing for a potential investor. I needed to see the truth." He paused. "And because I knew I would be making you an offer eventually, and I wanted to come in with complete information." "That is very calculating." "I am a businessman, Tessa. Calculation is what I do." But his expression softened. "Though I will admit, watching you work was more compelling than I expected." There it was again, that undercurrent of something more than business. Tessa took a long sip of her wine, trying to steady herself. "Tell me about this clothing line you are planning." Isaac's face lit up, and for the next hour he talked about his vision. A line of essential clothing items designed to last for years, made from sustainable materials, produced ethically, priced fairly. He talked about the environmental impact of the fashion industry, about how he wanted to prove that profit and principle could coexist. "Most people would say that is naive," Tessa said. "That consumers will always choose cheap over ethical. Most people are wrong. Look at the food industry. 20 years ago, organic and sustainable were fringe concepts. Now they are mainstream. The same shift is happening in fashion, just slower. I want to be ahead of that curve. And you think Vaughn Textiles can provide the fabrics you need? I know you can. I have seen your work, remember? Those cotton linen blends, the organic cotton lines, the bamboo fiber experiments. You are already producing exactly what I need. You just need someone to buy it in volume and market it properly." It made sense. More than that, it excited her. The idea of her father's company not just surviving but thriving, becoming a leader in sustainable textiles. What would the timeline look like? They talked through the details over dessert and coffee. Isaac had everything planned out, from production schedules to marketing strategies to retail partnerships. He had clearly been thinking about this for months, maybe longer. "I should warn you," Isaac said as they were finishing their coffee. "This partnership means we will be working together closely. Weekly meetings, frequent communication, joint decisions on major directions. If that is going to be a problem, why would it be a problem?" He looked at her for a long moment. "Because I find you remarkably distracting, Tessa Vaughn, and that is not something I am accustomed to feeling about business partners." The honesty of the statement stole her breath. She should laugh it off, redirect to safer ground. Instead, she heard herself say, "You are fairly distracting yourself." The air between them shifted, charged with something neither of them was quite ready to name. Isaac signaled for the check, and they rode back to Queens in loaded silence, the city lights streaming past the car windows. When they pulled up to her hotel, Isaac walked her to the entrance despite her protests that he didn't need to. "Think about the offer," he said, his voice low in the warm September night. "Not about the money or the terms, but about what it means for your father's legacy. About what it means for those workers who have been loyal to your family for decades. About what you want Vaughn Textiles to become. I will." And Tessa, he reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear in a gesture so gentle it made her knees weak. "Think about whether you can work with me, because I want this partnership to succeed, which means we need to be honest with each other, about everything." She knew he was not just talking about business anymore. "I will think about that too." He smiled, a real smile that transformed his serious face into something breathtaking. "Good night, Tessa." She watched him walk back to the car, watched it pull away into traffic, and realized she was in serious trouble. This was supposed to be about saving her father's company, not about the way her heart raced every time Isaac looked at her. But as she rode the elevator up to her room, she couldn't stop smiling. The next morning, Tessa flew back to North Carolina with the contract in her bag and Isaac Richardson occupying far too much space in her thoughts. She spent the week diving into the details, talking with her accountant, her operations manager, her father's oldest friends in the business. Everyone agreed it was an incredible opportunity. On Friday afternoon, she sat beside her father's bed in the rehabilitation center. He was improving, able to communicate with gestures and short words now, his blue eyes as sharp as ever even if his body was still recovering. "So," Tessa said, holding the contract, "I met with Richardson Industries. They want to become a partner, not buy us out. They will pay off all our debts, finance expansion, help us reach new markets. We keep control of operations." Her father's eyes filled with tears. He raised a shaking hand to her face, touching her cheek. "Good," he managed to say. "Proud. I learned from the best, Dad." She blinked back her own tears. "Is it okay? Do I have your blessing to sign?" He nodded emphatically, then gestured for the pen on his bedside table. With enormous effort, he scrawled on a piece of paper, "Trust yourself." Those two words gave her the courage she needed. On Monday morning, she called Isaac. "I am in," she said without preamble. "I want to do this." She could hear the smile in his voice. "I was hoping you would say that. Can you come back to New York this week? We should sign the papers in person, and I want to introduce you to my design team." "I can be there Thursday." "Perfect. And Tessa, I am glad you are taking this chance. You won't regret it." She hoped he was right. This time, Isaac sent a car to pick her up from LaGuardia, and the driver took her straight to Richardson Industries headquarters. Isaac was waiting in the lobby, looking unfairly handsome in a charcoal suit. "Welcome back," he said, shaking her hand with that same warm grip she remembered. Ready to change the world? Let us start with saving one textile factory and see where that leads. The signing was straightforward, witnessed by lawyers from both sides. When Tessa put her signature on the final page, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Vaughn Textiles was safe. Her father's workers would keep their jobs. The legacy would continue. "Congratulations," Isaac said, shaking her hand again. "To our partnership." "To our partnership," she echoed, aware of his thumb brushing across her knuckles before he released her hand. The rest of the day was a whirlwind. Isaac introduced her to his design team, 5 talented people who were as passionate about sustainable fashion as he was. They showed her their initial sketches, asked detailed questions about fabric capabilities, discussed production timelines. Tessa found herself getting caught up in their excitement, offering suggestions, explaining what Vaughn Textiles could create. "You are a natural at this," Isaac murmured at one point, standing close enough that she could feel the heat of him. "I love what I do. It shows." His eyes were warm. "This is going to work, Tessa. I can feel it." That evening, he insisted on taking her to dinner again, this time at a steakhouse that overlooked Central Park. They talked about business at first, but gradually the conversation drifted to more personal topics. She learned that Isaac had grown up in Boston, the son of a single mother who worked 3 jobs to put him through college. He had started his first business at 23, sold it at 28 for enough money to fund Richardson Industries. He was 36, never married, lived in a penthouse in Midtown that he barely spent any time in. "I work too much," he admitted. "My mother says I am going to wake up at 50 and realize I missed my life. Is she right? Maybe. Probably." He swirled the wine in his glass. "But building something that matters, that leaves the world better than I found it, that feels important to me." "I understand that. That is why I stayed in Greensboro when I had job offers in New York. The company mattered more than my career ambitions." "Do you regret it?" Tessa thought about it. "No, but sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I had chosen differently." "You can still have that life. New York, career, all of it. This partnership means you will be spending a lot of time here." The idea sent a thrill through her. More time in New York meant more time with Isaac, though she was not quite ready to examine why that excited her so much. Over the next 3 months, Tessa's life transformed. She split her time between Greensboro and New York, overseeing production at the factory while working with Isaac's team on fabric development. They created samples, tested durability, adjusted weaves and blends until they had exactly what the clothing line needed. Through it all, Isaac was a constant presence. He visited the Greensboro factory twice, each time staying for days to understand the production process. He met with her workers, learned their names, asked about their families. He was exactly the kind of partner her father would have approved of. He was also incredibly distracting. Tessa found herself looking forward to their video calls, their late-night planning sessions, the way his face lit up when she showed him a new fabric sample. She noticed small things about him, how he rolled up his sleeves when he was focused, how he ran his hand through his hair when he was thinking, how his rare smiles transformed his serious face. She was falling for him, and it terrified her. It was late November when everything came to a head. Tessa was in New York for a week of intensive planning before the holiday break. Isaac's design team had finalized their first collection, and they were preparing for production to begin in January. On the last evening, Isaac invited her to his penthouse to review the final plans. She had never been to his home before, and stepping into the sleek, modern space felt intimate in a way their previous meetings had not. "Can I get you some wine?" he offered, shrugging off his suit jacket. "Please." He poured them each a glass and led her to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The view was spectacular, millions of lights stretching out in every direction. "I never get tired of this," Isaac said quietly. "No matter how stressful the day was, I come home to this and everything feels manageable. It is beautiful." Tessa was acutely aware of how close he was standing, how the dim lighting made everything feel softer, more charged. They reviewed the production plans, but both of them were distracted. Finally, Isaac set down his tablet and turned to face her fully. "Tessa, I need to tell you something." Her heart kicked into overdrive. "Okay. These last 3 months working with you, getting to know you, it has been the best part of my year, maybe the best part of several years." He took a breath. "You are smart and passionate, and you care so deeply about doing things right. You challenge me, you inspire me, you make me want to be better." "Isaac, let me finish." He stepped closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "I know this complicates our business relationship. I know it is probably a terrible idea. But I cannot stop thinking about you. I cannot stop wanting to hear your voice, see your smile, find excuses to spend more time with you. And I need to know if I am alone in feeling this way." Tessa's breath caught. She should be practical, should think about the business implications, should protect herself from potential heartbreak. But standing there with Isaac looking at her like she was the only thing in his world, practicality felt very far away. "You are not alone," she whispered. The relief and joy that flooded his face was worth any risk. He reached up, cupping her face in his large hands, his thumbs brushing her cheekbones. "Can I kiss you?" Instead of answering, she rose on her toes and closed the distance between them. The kiss was electric, months of tension and attraction igniting all at once. His arms came around her, pulling her close as she melted into him. He kissed her like he had been thinking about it for as long as she had, with a combination of hunger and reverence that made her dizzy. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Isaac rested his forehead against hers. "I have wanted to do that since the day you almost walked out of that negotiation. You should have stopped me sooner then," he laughed, the sound rich and warm, noted for future reference. They spent the rest of the evening on his couch, talking and kissing and laughing. Isaac told her about his dreams for the future, not just the business but the life he wanted to build. She told him about her fears, her hopes, how terrifying and exhilarating this all felt. "I need you to know something," Isaac said as it got late and she really should be heading back to her hotel. "I am serious about this, about you. I don't do casual and I don't play games with people I care about. I don't either." "Good." He kissed her again, soft and sweet. "Then let us figure this out together." Tessa went back to Greensboro for Thanksgiving, but she and Isaac talked every day. Video calls turned into hours-long conversations about everything and nothing. They texted constantly, sharing parts of their days, random thoughts, silly jokes. Her mother noticed the change immediately. "You are glowing, sweetheart. What happened in New York?" Tessa found herself blushing. "Isaac and we are kind of seeing each other now." Her mother's face lit up. "The CEO, Tessa, that is wonderful, is it? We are business partners." "What if this ruins everything? What if it makes everything better?" Her mother hugged her. "Your father always said the best partnerships are built on trust and respect. Sounds like you have both with this man." When Tessa visited her father that afternoon, she told him about Isaac, about how they had grown close while working together. Her father's speech had improved significantly, and he was able to smile and say, "Good man. Lucky man." "I am the lucky one, Dad." He shook his head. "Both lucky." In December, Isaac came to Greensboro for a week. Tessa showed him around the town where she had grown up, introduced him to her mother, took him to her favorite local spots. He fit into her life seamlessly, charming her mother, impressing the factory workers with his knowledge and respect, making her father laugh during their visit to the rehabilitation center. On Christmas Eve, they walked through downtown Greensboro, admiring the holiday lights. Isaac pulled her into a quiet corner away from the crowds. "I have something for you," he said, pulling a small wrapped box from his pocket. "Isaac, we said no gifts. This is not exactly a gift. Open it." Inside was a delicate necklace with a small pendant shaped like a textile shuttle. Tessa's eyes filled with tears. "It is perfect. Turn it over." She did and found an engraving. "To the woman who taught me that legacy matters more than profit. I.R. Isaac." She didn't even try to stop the tears now. He gently took the necklace and fastened it around her neck. "I wanted you to have something that represents who you are, what you have built. You saved your father's company, Tessa. You did that. Never forget it." She kissed him there on the street corner, not caring who saw, pouring all her feelings into it. When they broke apart, he was smiling. "I love you," he said simply. "I know it is fast and maybe I should wait to tell you, but I don't want to. I love you, Tessa Vaughn." "I love you too," she whispered against his lips. "So much it scares me." "Don't be scared. We will figure this out together." They spent Christmas with Tessa's family, and Isaac fit in like he had always been there. He helped her mother cook, told stories that made everyone laugh, gave thoughtful gifts that showed how much attention he paid. On Christmas night, as they sat by the fireplace in her mother's living room, Tessa felt a contentment she hadn't known she was missing. Production on the clothing line started in January, and suddenly, everything became a beautiful chaos. Vaughn Textiles was running at full capacity, producing the fabrics Isaac's team needed while still serving their existing clients. Tessa hired 10 new workers, bought additional equipment, expanded their organic cotton program. Isaac's clothing line, named Legacy in honor of what they were building together, launched in April to significant fanfare. The fashion press loved the concept of sustainable, durable basics, and consumers responded enthusiastically. Within 2 months, they were struggling to keep up with demand. "We need to expand production," Isaac said during a video call in June. He was in Los Angeles for meetings, and Tessa missed him terribly. They had been dating for 7 months now, and the distance never got easier. "I have been looking at the old warehouse next to our main facility. We could convert it, do it. Whatever you need." He paused. "I miss you." "I miss you too. When are you back?" "Friday, and then I am taking you away for the weekend. Pack a bag and bring something nice to wear." That Friday, Isaac picked her up in Greensboro and drove her to the North Carolina coast. He had rented a beach house, private and beautiful with views of the ocean from every window. "What is this for?" Tessa asked as they walked barefoot on the beach that evening. "For us. We have been working non-stop since January. We deserve a break." They spent the weekend cooking together, walking on the beach, talking about their dreams for the future. On Sunday evening, as the sun set over the water, Isaac took her hand. "I have been thinking about something," he said. "About our future." Tessa's heart started pounding. "Okay. I love what we have built together, Tessa. The business, yes, but also this." He gestured between them. "Us. I love coming home to you, whether that is in Greensboro or New York. I love how you challenge me and support me and make me laugh. I love planning our future." "Isaac, I am not asking yet," he said with a soft smile, "but I want you to know that is where this is heading for me. I want forever with you, Tessa. I want to build a life together, not just a business." She was crying now, happy tears that she didn't bother to wipe away. "That is where this is heading for me too." He pulled her close, and they stood there as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, the waves rushing around their feet, and Tessa felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. By fall, Legacy had become one of the fastest-growing sustainable fashion brands in the country. Vaughn Textiles had doubled its workforce and was fielding inquiries from other ethical fashion companies. Tessa split her time between Greensboro and New York, and Isaac made the reverse trip just as often. In October, Tessa's father was discharged from rehabilitation. His speech was still slow, but he was mobile again, able to visit the factory and see what his daughter had built. The day he walked through the expanded facility, seeing the new equipment and the bustling production floor, he pulled Tessa aside with tears in his eyes. "You did it," he said, the words coming easier now. "Better than I dreamed." "We did it, Dad. Your foundation made all of this possible." He shook his head. "Your heart, your fight. Proud of you, Tessie." That evening, Isaac came to the family dinner her mother had organized to celebrate her father's homecoming. As they sat around the table, laughing and sharing stories, her mother raised her glass. "To family," she said, "old and new." Everyone drank, and when Tessa met Isaac's eyes across the table, she saw her own joy reflected back at her. That November, exactly 1 year after they had first kissed, Isaac asked Tessa to meet him at his penthouse. When she arrived, the lights of the city were spread out below them like a blanket of stars. "You remember standing here a year ago?" Isaac asked, taking her hands. "Of course. That was the night everything changed. That was the night I finally told you how I felt. The night I stopped pretending this was just business." He took a breath, and Tessa's heart started racing. "This year with you has been the best year of my life, Tessa. You have made me better in every possible way. You have shown me what it means to build something with love and integrity. You have given me a future I actually want to live in." He dropped to one knee, and Tessa's hands flew to her mouth. "I love you, Tessa Vaughn. I love your strength and your compassion and your stubborn refusal to compromise on what matters. I love how you fight for the people you care about. I love the life we are building together." He pulled out a ring, a stunning sapphire surrounded by diamonds. "Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life loving you and building our legacy together?" "Yes," she managed through her tears. "Yes, of course, yes." He slid the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss that felt like a promise. When they finally broke apart, both of them laughing and crying, Isaac cupped her face in his hands. "I am going to make you so happy, Tessa. You already do, every single day." They were married the following June in Greensboro, with her father walking her down the aisle and her mother crying happy tears in the front row. Isaac's mother flew in from Boston, and half the factory workers attended, along with Isaac's entire design team. It was a celebration of love and family, and everything they had built together. For their honeymoon, they spent 3 weeks traveling through Italy, visiting textile mills and fashion houses and falling even more in love with each other. They talked about their future, about the family they wanted to build, about the empire they were creating together. When they returned, Tessa moved into Isaac's penthouse, though they still spent plenty of time in Greensboro. Legacy continued to grow, and Vaughn Textiles expanded again to meet the demand. They launched a second clothing line focused on children's wear, using even more of Vaughn's organic textiles. 2 years after their wedding, Tessa gave birth to a daughter they named Sarah, after Isaac's mother. Holding their baby girl in the hospital, with Isaac sitting beside her looking awed and terrified and completely in love, Tessa thought about how far they had come. "Can you believe we met because I almost walked out of a negotiation?" she said. Isaac laughed. "Best decision I ever made, stopping you that day." "Second best," Tessa corrected. "The best was falling in love with me. That was not a decision. That was inevitable from the moment I saw you covered in ink and fighting for what you believed in." He kissed her forehead. Thank you for taking a chance on us. Thank you for seeing what my father built and understanding why it mattered. Thank you for teaching me that business and heart do not have to be separate, that the best legacies are built on love." Sarah made a small sound, and they both looked down at their daughter, their future, their legacy. 3 years later, they had a son named James after Tessa's father. By then, Legacy had become a household name, and Vaughn Textiles was one of the most respected sustainable textile manufacturers in the country. They had opened a second facility in North Carolina and were planning a third. But more important than any business success was what they had built together. A marriage based on trust and respect and genuine partnership. A family filled with love and laughter. A life that honored both their values and their dreams. On their 5th wedding anniversary, they stood in the same spot in Isaac's penthouse where he had proposed, their children asleep in their rooms down the hall. "You ever regret it?" Tessa asked, leaning back against his chest as they looked out at the city. "Choosing love over staying focused only on business? Never. Not for a single second." Isaac wrapped his arms around her waist. "You are my greatest success, Tessa. This life we have built is worth more than any amount of money I could have made. Even though I am incredibly stubborn and argue with you constantly," she felt him smile against her hair. "Especially because of that, you keep me honest, you keep me grounded, you keep me human." They stood there in comfortable silence, watching the city lights, thinking about everything they had survived and created and become together. "I love you," Tessa said softly. "Thank you for stopping me from leaving that day. I love you too. Thank you for staying." Isaac turned her in his arms so he could look at her face. "Thank you for taking a chance on a partnership that became so much more. Best decision I ever made." "Second best," he corrected with a grin. "The best was falling in love with me." She laughed and pulled him down for a kiss. And in that moment, with the city spread out below them and their children sleeping safely nearby and a future full of possibilities ahead, Tessa knew with absolute certainty that she had everything she needed. Their story had started with a negotiation, with her walking away and him giving her a reason to stay. But it had become so much more than that. It had become a partnership built on respect and trust, a love story that honored both their dreams, a legacy that their children would be proud of. And it had all started because Isaac Richardson had stopped her from leaving before she got what she deserved, because he had seen her worth when others hadn't, because he had offered her not just money but a true partnership, because he had loved her before she even knew she loved him. Years later, when their daughter Sarah was preparing to take over operations at Vaughn Textiles, and their son James was studying business at Harvard, Tessa and Isaac sat on the porch of their house in Greensboro, watching the sunset. "We did pretty well, didn't we?" Tessa said, her hand in Isaac's. "We did better than well. We built something that matters." He squeezed her hand. "And we did it together." "Together," she echoed and leaned her head on his shoulder, content in the life they had created, the love they had nurtured, the legacy they would leave behind. Their story was one of second chances and seeing value where others didn't, of walking away and being given a reason to stay, of business becoming personal and professional respect becoming deep, abiding love. It was a story that started with a negotiation in a Manhattan conference room and became a lifetime of partnership, love, and building something beautiful together. And every day, Tessa wore the necklace Isaac had given her that first Christmas, the textile shuttle pendant reminding her of where they started and how far they had come. Every day, Isaac looked at his wife and felt grateful that he had been brave enough to stop her from leaving, to offer her not just a business deal but his heart. They had built an empire, raised a family, and created a legacy that would last generations. But more than any of that, they had found each other, and that was the greatest success of all.